Um, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank everybody for joining in. Our numbers are a bit down tonight. I suppose, look, there's a lot going on with all the different clubs, but again, look, we'll have the recording there and we can share that with people after the fact as well. So if the lads are happy to continue there, and we will continue on with the presentation and with the night for those that have joined in. So it's something different tonight, folks, okay? So we're going to reflect back on what was 2019 for the hurlers and then go back a few more years, back to 2003, and look at how the footballers got on that particular year. So I'd like to welcome the lads who are hosting this tonight for us. I'd like to welcome Paddy and Tommy, and they're going to discuss and give their opinions and their catalogue of their story of what happened last year, 2019. And I'd like to welcome Padraig Clancy and Fergal in to discuss the ongoings in 2003 with their involvement in that team. So just a brief rundown then of how the night will work. We'll start off with Paddy and Tommy, and they'll just go through their piece. They'll discuss the hurling side of things for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Directly after that, we'll pass it over to Padraig and to Fergal, and they will give us their rendition of how 2003 was for themselves. Leading on from that then, folks, again, look, there's not, I suppose, a huge audience tonight, but if you would like to pass a comment or pose a question to any of the lads at that stage, be it on the hurling side or the football side, perhaps share your own memories, will allow the meeting run there to 10 past, perhaps 9:15. So again, I hope everyone enjoys, I suppose, reminiscing over the course of the next hour. And again, I suppose I'll just find out that there is plenty of opportunity for those in the call tonight just to explain and to pass on your memories of what might have been. Okay, so Paddy, if you're happy enough there, so I'll pass it over to you and you can get us going.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just thank you for bringing me on the call and to recognise the good year we had last year. So basically, I'm just going to talk through the year, where we started and to where we ended. So basically, it's that we started off in I think we got called back in early November, and I remember it being difficult coming back in because I was after coming off a county final loss myself, and then we had a very bad 2018 with Laois, so it was hard enough to get motivated to come in again. But I remember meeting Eddie in Obama Plaza one day when I was working, and from that meeting onwards, then it was like it was full steam ahead. He gave me so much confidence that day, and it kind of the hunger that I was lacking probably up to that probably came back from that meeting, and it kind of just drove on from there. We got back training. We trained. We did a good pre-season before Christmas, and we competed very well in the Walsh Cup, which we hadn't done previous years. So I think we won 2 out of 3 matches, and we played Dublin after Christmas in the last Walsh Cup match, and we probably should have won that match. So that probably led on to what happened later on the year. But we were very happy with our Walsh Cup. Then we started into our league campaign, which was probably, we started off with two very hard matches with Galway and Waterford. We kind of got a bit of a lesson from both of them, but Eddie's main thing was that we learned from every match. So we did our video analysis after each match, and we learned every time we went along. And then as the league went on, we started to compete a bit better. We still weren't getting the results, but our aim at the start of the year was to qualify for a league quarter final and to get to Crow Park for the Joe Mc Donagh final. So we got to the league quarter final. We played Dublin on the last day of the league. It was snow, and it was the coldest day I've ever played hurling in. But we competed very well. Probably should have won that match as well. We were down a man with about 20 minutes to go. So we were building confidence the whole time as we went along, although the results probably weren't going our way. And then we welcomed Limerick, the All-Ireland champions, to O'Moore Park in the league quarter final, and it was a kind of a bonus territory for us. Like we were always going to be up against it, but we hurled well in spells. We were well bet in the night, but again, we learned a lot. We learned a lot about our players and our panel, and we learned the movement of the Limerick forwards that night was incredible, and we took a lot from that. And then think we took a week off and went back to our clubs for a few matches in April, and that kind of re-energized everything again. And we kind of did another pre-season. It was one of the best pre-season training that I've done between league and championship. We trained like dogs. We trained, I don't know, 4 or 5 nights a week there. We worked very hard, and we were playing a lot of matches as well. We were playing the likes of the Clares and the Corks, although they mightn't been their full 15, but it was a chance for some of our lads to get a run out as well against high profile players. And again, we learned from them matches, and we competed very well in them matches. We competed very well against Clare down in Ennis, and then we went up to Dublin on the Thursday night, or Wednesday or Thursday night, and we got a bit of a hammering, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened, because we played I think we played Cork the following Sunday, Cork's second team now, the following Sunday in Portlaoise, and it was the best we've played in a long time. The attitude just changed after that Dublin match. It was an eye opener, the Dublin match, because we weren't fully tuned in at all, and it just goes to show us what can be done when you are fully tuned in and when the attitude is right. And from that Cork match on, we kind of really drove on things. Training was really good. Lads were hopping off the ground, and training was getting really competitive. This was leading into everything was leading towards the Offaly match in Tullamore, and I think a week before the Offaly match we went for a training camp down to Waterford for a night, and Ken McGrath spoke to us, and he just spoke about his experiences with Waterford and the heartache that he had to go through before he actually got success. So we took a lot from that, and we did a lot of work ourselves on our goal setting and bits of tactics and things like that. So that was a very worthwhile exercise we did. And then we were building up to the Offaly match, because we were targeting that match from, you could say, the November previously, because the year before in the Joe Mc Donagh Cup we were beaten by Westmeath in the first match, and if you're beaten the first day you're always playing catch up. So we targeted that match, and historically Laois going to Tullamore was never going to be easy, and we knew if we could beat Offaly we'd always have one up on them. We'd be one up on them in terms of head-to-head matches, and that's crucial as well in the Joe Mc Donagh, because the teams are so level par that all the teams were going to beat each other, and that's the way it worked out. And so to get off to a winning start gave us great confidence. And then a week later we played Antrim, and we just building confidence week on week, and we were starting to hurl well as a team. We knew the system we were going to be playing. We were going to play the short passing out from the back and feed our forwards best we could, and running off the shoulder, and it kept building and building and building. And one thing we were doing last year that Laois teams hadn't been doing for numerous years was we were scoring goals. We were scoring 2-3 goals every match, and at that level that's a killer, because we were also putting up a high point rate as well. So we were nearly targeting 220 or 320 every day, and to be bet at that score is going to be very hard. So we knew if we got there we'd be going well. And then we had a big game going down to Tralee the following week against Kerry, because it's somewhere that we haven't done well in the past few years either, was going down to Tralee. And we were under a lot of pressure. I've never felt pressure like it actually going down to Tralee, because we knew if we won that match we were qualified for Croke Park. So I just remember the night before that match I was very, very nervous, but again, we got off to a great start. We were high in confidence, and again, I think we scored 4 or 5 goals that day. So that was really the key. And then we were qualified for the final, so all the pressure was off. We had reached our target of getting to Croke Park. But then the Westmeath match we played before, Eddie and the boys rested a few boys, and the rest of the panel got a good chance, and that worked out well, because we had picked up a few injuries along the way with Mark, and Aina got injured I think 2 matches in, so that gave chance for Picky and Neil File and Conor Fell and these boys to come in. And we were always building on our panel. We had more than 5 subs that on any day that if we needed a different position we had lads there, which was a huge help, and it's probably something we hadn't had for a long time, was players to come in and make a huge impact. And then leading up to the final, then we went up to Croke Park the week before the final, because there was only a handful of us that had played in Croke Park. The minors played there in 2013, I think, so there was only 4 or 5 of them. the only time I had set foot in Croke Park and the grass in Croke Park was after the Leinster final in 2003. So, and I'd been up there a few times doing promotional yokes before the Joe Mc Donagh final, and you're not even allowed to walk on the field. So the first time I stepped on the field was 15 minutes before with the throw in at the Joe Mc Donagh final. So but we didn't really feel too much pressure going into the match because it was our first time in Croke Park, and it was always going to be a daunting task to perform. But that was just our main key, that if we performed, we knew we'd have it in us to get over the line, and we were delighted that we performed on the day. Again, I think it was 3 goals we scored, so the goals win matches, and I think that's something Eddie and Tommy and Niall have brought with that. Just go for it, and if it's on, just go for it. So, as I said, we were building confidence the whole time, and then sure, winning that match in Croke Park was unbelievable, and to see the crowd that had turned out for it was amazing. But when we got back to Port it was just incredible to see the amount what it meant to Laois people. We probably hadn't realised it up to the final. We were kind of in our own little bubble up to that. But to see what it meant to all the people on the streets of Port and when the bus was going into the Midlands Park Hotel as well, it was amazing. But I think the turning point in the season for us, when we took out Dublin, was we were coming down on the bus from the Joe Mc Donagh final, and we were stopping into the Thatch there in Ballybrittis, and Eddie just pulled us all aside there and just said he just wanted us to go out the following week and give the best account possible, and we just agreed there that we'd enjoy the Sunday night and we'd enjoy during the day the Monday, and we'd finish up early enough on the Monday. It didn't work out as well as that, but that was probably the turning point. We kind of refocused straight away, which was very important. We knew we were after playing Dublin twice that year already in the World Cup and the league, and we knew we had the beating of them really deep down, and for a Laois team to think of that against a top tier team is quite rare. So we were confident, but we weren't saying a whole lot, and we went back training Tuesday night. It was a lot of sore heads and tired bodies, but we got a bit of a blowout. But the boys, the management team, they said we'd have to go again on the Wednesday night, so we went again on the Wednesday night to just get a bit of hurling into us and just go through a bit of tactics. We'd never done that before, to go 2 nights in a row, but it worked to our benefit because we were building the whole time, and we were taking confidence as well from it because we just had come off after coming off a win, and we were after bonding there over the Sunday and the Monday, and everything was going well. It was easy on train, and we were all hopping off the ground. And then Friday night we just did our usual training, and we had a meeting, and it was probably the most powerful meeting I was ever in. We'd be a quite enough bunch, but we have 2 exceptional backroom members, 2 unbelievable leaders in Pat Delaney and John Keeley, and they spoke that night, and what they said was just exceptional. And I think Eddie has said it a good few times that he knew from that meeting that we were ready. But you could feel it in the room anyway, that we were ready to perform. We never really talked about beating Dublin. We just said that we go out and play our own game, and if we perform and give give everything we had, we wouldn't be 100 miles away. And that the crowd, Tommy mentioned the crowd that was going to be there, that was going to pull us over the line if we were coming down, and that's what happened. And the outcry of emotion that happened at the final whistle was unbelievable. A pitch invasion in O'Moore Park, and lovely Laois playing over for a Laois hurling team. I've never experienced it, and you want days like that every time you go out. But and then again we went out that night. We went out that night again. Probably we got a bad name for drinking after matches and that. But it probably brought us closer together, if anything. And we got back training Tuesday night again. The same thing Friday night before the tip match, and the tip match was probably bonus territory for us in a way, but there was a feeling amongst the players and amongst the team that again, if we were to perform and if we were in the game going down the line, that we wouldn't be far off. But we were going well into half time, but then the sending off probably killed us a bit. But overall it was an amazing year, and it was amazing to see how especially the Laois hurling people, how they reacted to it and what it means to Laois. And like we've been looking for I've been looking for a day like that for days like that for I've been playing with Laois for 7 or 8 years now, and you cry out for days like that. And playing in Croke Park in front of a massive Laois crowd is unbelievable. The only thing about playing in Croke Park is you want to play there every day. So unlucky that we didn't that the championship was kind of put back this year, that we had lost a bit of momentum, but hopefully we'll get back there in the future. So that's really all. That's my story anyway. It was an unbelievable year, and it's hard to actually think that it's actually gone. It's nearly a year since it happened now, but they're memories I'll have forever, and it was unbelievable for me.
Thank you very much, Paddy. That was very enjoyable. So I think the important thing there before we pass it over to Tommy, just for me, I suppose, was that perspective that you speak about there that was put in place at the start of the year, even if results weren't going your way, that you knew what you were looking for and people didn't get disheartened, I suppose, was probably a key thing that led to the success later on in the year. So I think that was, and I'll mention it now, I suppose I'll be mentioning it after Tommy speaks anyway, but I've been in the county maybe 4 or 5 months at that stage, and when I went into work on the Monday morning and after the Dublin game, and the queues that were basically in the office, and they were going all the ways down along where the dressing rooms are, the excellence, I'd say nearly coming out the other door again. So it was brilliant to see all those people there queuing up and waiting for those tickets for tips. And we want to see more of that. You mentioned it there about playing in Croke Park every weekend, and Croke Park leads to those queues for tickets, so we want to see more of that. So thank you very much, Paddy. It was very enjoyable. Tommy,
Thanks,
if I could pass it over to you, please, to give your version of events.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks for inviting us on this evening. I suppose we've had enough bad days in Laois over the years, so it's I suppose it's nice to kind of look back on the better days. In fairness to Paddy, he did a great job there. I don't think I've much else to say, to be quite honest with you. You nearly covered everything. Just kind of building on a couple of points that Paddy mentioned there. Like I said, he was fairly comprehensive in his review, but just looking back at the league, I suppose, and starting at that point, he referenced we played Galway and Waterford for the first 2 rounds, and it was tough opposition the first 2 rounds. And I think the Galway game in particular in Salt Hill, we felt as a squad that we were quite poor, and it was probably our worst performance of the year. With Waterford 6 or 7 days later, and again, it didn't go to plan, but I think we had 2 or 3 weeks off then till we played Offaly, and those 2 or 3 weeks were really important for us. We identified the positive aspects especially from the Waterford game. We were a bit better against Waterford, but we just really focused on 2 or 3 key learnings from the first 2 games. And I know the coaches online are online tonight, and they're probably primarily, I suppose, underage coaches, but we felt the video analysis work that we did after the Waterford and Galway games really stood to us, and we took really good meetings, and we Offaly did the next day, and we heard quite well, actually. I think we were 16 points up at one stage. We won the game comfortably enough, and that led into the rest of the league games. And as kind of Paddy touched on, the Dublin game in the last round, where we was probably our best performance of the league. We were getting progressively better as the league went on, which was a good sign. And we had Limerick at home then, the quarter final, which was it was great to pit ourselves against the All-Ireland champions, and I think it was live on TV. It was a good experience for the lads, and we found out a lot, as Paddy said, about the squad that night. And you boys, we learned, look, they're well able to mix at this level. Other lads had a bit of a road to travel, but again, I think the analysis work we did was huge in terms of the learnings we got. We had behind the goal camera for all of our games last year, to see the movement, I suppose, from Limerick off their puckouts and their forward movement. Again, we took the best bits from the opposition game plan. We kind of saw what we could maybe use in our own system. So I think it was 2 months off then between the league and the championship, and Paddy touched on let the lads back to the club, and then we kind of did a good bit of hard work and grunt work. But we also played 2 really quality practice games in the lead up to the Offaly game. We played Tipperary and Clare. And I suppose for anybody listening again, I think it's good to play to test yourself against the top opposition, top teams out there. We could have gone and played teams of a weaker standard and probably won well and maybe build confidence that way. But by playing the top teams, I think there's a lot more to benefit from that. And I think for any coach out there, I think don't be afraid to challenge yourself and go play better teams outside the county if you're preparing a club team or what have you. So those two performances, I think we heard reasonably well. Now I have to say, Tip came down with their full championship 15 down to Moore Park, and we went toe to toe with them now, and it was a really good hour or 70 minutes work, and that led us into the Offaly game. It was about 2 weeks before Offaly, and as Paddy mentioned it, the first game to McDonagh is absolutely huge, because if you don't win it, you're really in the back foot. We actually saw it. Offaly were devastated after the game because they knew they were kind of in bother after losing, and they put so much into playing us, and playing in Tullamore against Offaly was a huge one. And for me personally, who's more often than not was on the wrong side of results against Offaly, that was a sweet one, I have to say. And it was a crazy game. I think it was 422 to 321. I checked the score there today. It was up and down, and could have gone either way. But really entertaining game. It was great to come out on the right side of that. We played Antrim the following week, and then we actually had a 3-week break. We 2 games left in McDonagh. We'd Kerry and Westmeath. We just needed to win one. We 3 weeks off. It was actually at that stage that we played Dublin, that practice game in Abbottstown that Paddy speaks about. And look, we didn't know whether to take it or not, and we ended up taking it. And we wanted to see lads who hadn't seen a lot of game time, and we kind of we played, I'd say, 7 or 8 of our first team, and we 6 or 7 lads that hadn't seen a lot of game time. But typical challenge match stuff, we put up a decent enough score, but Dublin put 7 goals past us, and I have to say though, we got huge learning from that, and we could see kind of what Dublin, the method that they had and what they were trying to do, and it actually informed our game plan when we ended up playing them a couple of months later. We played Cork then the Sunday, and again we put up a big score. I think it was over 31 or 2 points we scored that day, and we had a big win then in Tralee, which qualified us for the final. And Paddy spoke about then the experience at Croke Park, and just on that, it was fantastic, I suppose. It was 15 years since Laois had even played a match at Croke Park, a hurling match at Croke Park, and to win a trophy was really pleasing, and to play well and to put up a big score, and then to see Paddy bring up Pat Delaney then at the end, and he made a great speech, Paddy, in fairness himself, and to bring up Pat Delaney to lift the cup was I have to say, it was my favourite moment of the day. Like, Pat is, when I started hurling with Laois under 14 back. Fido, like, Pat was the manager, and all these years later, he's been a constant with Laois hurling teams over the years, and to see him lift the cup in Croke Park with his clubman Paddy was really fantastic. And the dressing room after and the bus journey home, it was really it was really special, I have to say. Like, I've been on some fairly depressing bus journeys with Laois over the years, and it was a fairly contrasting experience when you're coming down from Croke Park and the cup is at the front of the bus. But the boys, as Paddy said, did a good Sunday, and I think they did a good Monday as well, which maybe we weren't too pleased about. But we brought the lads in Tuesday and Wednesday, and again, Paddy has a different interpretation of Tuesday and Wednesday than I had. Now, I thought they were fairly poor, I have to say. The boys were absolutely stuck to the ground. They were fairly lethargic. We were going away Wednesday night and training, I have to say, we were worried. We thought, Jesus, where are these lads at all? Like, and the reason we brought them in really was to refocus them and get them kind of tuned in for Dublin on Sunday. But again, Paddy referenced that meeting on Friday night, and I have to say it was powerful. There was a sense leaving the room that these boys meant business, and there was a big performance coming on Sunday. And again, when you walk in, anyone involved in high-level teams or club teams at a later stage, or county finals or big championship games, when you walk into a dressing room, kind of that you're either, geez, boys, we're in trouble here, or these lads are really tuned in. And on the Sunday, when we were met for the cup of tea, you could see they were really, really, really tuned in, and we knew the performance was coming. And what came then was absolutely fantastic. And with the atmosphere in Moore Park that day, like, I'd never experienced something like it, I have to say. And even at half time, I think we were 5 points up, and the crowd stood up, and there was a standing ovation, and it was kind of hairs in the back of your neck stuff. And then when the final whistle went, it was just magic. Look, being involved in Laois teams a long time, and I've never ever experienced anything like that. And it was far superior to the week before. I suppose McDonagh Cup was brilliant and it was our target all year, but really and truly, I think it's probably not our benchmark. We wouldn't think it's our benchmark. McDonagh Cup, like our benchmark is to try and beat these teams that are perceived to be kind of perceived to be higher up pecking order than us, and to do that was it was a fantastic experience, as everyone kind of knows now. Anyone who was there would bear testament to that. And but I have to say, just even going back a step or two there, we knew actually a couple of weeks out that we would have Dublin in that game if we had to win the McDonagh Cup, and we had a bit of work done on Dublin. I have to say, like as a management team, we never said this to the players. Now we knew the boys were going well, training was going well, practice games were going well. We were unbeaten through the McDonagh. Now we knew we had a job doing the final, but I suppose we wouldn't be doing our job unless we were preparing for Dublin. But I have to say, it was a 7-day turnaround into Tip. We'd absolutely nothing done for Tip in terms of preparation, so it was a bit of a scramble to get all our data together and analysis. But that was a really enjoyable week, I have to say, leading up to the Tip game. Even like I think the RT cameras are down with the boys at the cool camps on the Monday, and there's queues for tickets, and the train tickets are sold out, and there was flags going up everywhere, and there was a really goodwill factor around Laois hurling that week. And just travelling up on the bus even to Crow Park and see all the blue and white, and we drove past Euston Station, and I think the Laois trains were after landing at that stage, and it was they copped the bus, and there was a bit of chanting, and it was brilliant for the lads. Like, you know, as like I said, I remember coming home from Auckland one day on the bus after losing to Wicklow, like, so that was a big contrast. But yeah, look, it was a fantastic experience, a huge Laois crowd there, and had the boys equipped themselves quite well on the day. The sending off really probably did hurt us. Now, I think you could see then as well the 3 games and in a row and over the 3 weekends, 10-15 minutes to go, like we actually commented on the line, like our lad, they were just, we are subs used up I think at this stage, and lads were really running out of steam, and which wasn't surprising really, 14 men after playing 3 weeks in a row. But I think everyone in the county was very proud of the way the lads acquitted themselves over the course of those few weeks. And look, we've had plenty of bad days in Laois. We're just hoping now that we can build on what happened last year, and I suppose that's the question now for everybody involved in hurling in the county, is like, how ambitious are we, and you know, do we want to fluctuate between McDonagh and McCarthy over the next 10 or 15 years, or do we really want to push on and do the hard work that's necessary to be a competitive force in Leinster? So that's a collective effort from everybody involved in hurling in the county. So, but you'd be hopeful that we all got a taste of what it's like to compete at the highest level. So you'd be hoping people will be willing to put in that hard work and pull together over the next couple of years to make sure we're consistently playing at that level.
Cheers, Tommy. Thank you very much for that. Tommy, just there's one question there at the moment. I might put it to you, please.
Yeah.
So the question is, seen as the team built performance by performance last year, is this year's championship going to be a completely different approach, seen as it's so condensed? That's just putting it there, though, and just
Yes, look, it'll have to be, Mike, by the nature of it. Like, we're not allowed back train until 14th September. The county final in Laois is 27th of September. So, say for example, if Rathdowney Earl and Clough-Ballycullen or Burris Kilcotton are in the final, like we're down 10 or 11 of our players until 2.5 weeks before the first round of the Leinster Championship. So, by the nature of it, it's going to be completely different. And yeah, look, that was true last year. We did a video analysis session every Monday night or every Tuesday night before training, and we got huge learning from that. Again, there's a balance to be struck in terms of how much you do. You can't go overkill either, but we would have identified 2 or 3 areas every day. But it's going to be totally different. Like, whether we even get a practice game in before the championship is questionable. So yeah, I suppose, I don't know when the draw is even going to be. We don't even know the format of the championship stuff with backdoor as well. But yeah, we'd have to see who we're drawn against, and you kind of just have to prepare for that opposition, and in the space of 2 or 3 weeks try and put a game plan together. But yeah, it's going to be totally different experience what it was in 2019. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tommy. So what I'd say, folks, is keep the questions coming there. If you'd like to type them in or in turn, when we get to the end of the presentation tonight, we can reflect back again and pose questions to the lads about the hurling. Or obviously in turn, then we can pose questions or comments to both Padraig and Fergal. So Tommy and Paddy, thank you very, very much for now. If there is any more questions, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll pop back in at the end, and you might hold on the line, I suppose, as they'd say on the TV and all that. So thank you very much for now. I was very interested, and thank you for giving your experiences and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Cheers. So at this stage, folks, we will move on, and we'll have a conversation around what happened back in 2003 when Laois went on and beat Kildare in the Leinster final. Even the crowd, I suppose, that was in Croke Park that day, like there's bar at the top corner where the Canal Inn meets the Hogan there. There was a few seats empty there. The Nally Terrace wasn't built as of yet, but other than that, it seemed like the place was packed. So I'm going to hand you over now at this stage over to Padraig Clancy and to Fergal Byrne, and the lads will give their version of events from that particular period of time. You might just unmute yourself, please, Fergal.
Thanks, Mike.
Very good. Padraig, how are you?
How's it going, Mike?
Good. Right, lads, I'll leave it at it.
No bother. Thanks, Mike. First of all, thanks for inviting us on tonight. Myself and Padraig, obviously, soldier together for a long time in the Laois colours. And I suppose, unlike Paddy and Tommy, we have to go back a good bit further to try and remember what happened in 2003. It's 17 years ago now, but to be honest, it still lives fairly live in my memory to this day. And I suppose in terms of that year, we were 57 years waiting for a Leinster title in football, and it was a long wait, but it was well worth the wait. But I suppose that year started back in 2002, really, in October 2002, when we heard that Miko was coming on board, and we were coming off the back of a poor campaign in 2002. We were well beaten at home in the qualifiers by Meath, and I suppose a lot of us, particularly the lads that were there for a few years at that stage, were questioning whether they would continue or not with the inter-county scene. And I suppose when we heard that Miko was coming on board, it didn't take a whole lot of persuading to get us to come back on board. And I suppose when we look back at 2002, the team we had then versus the team that we had in 2003, there wasn't a whole lot in the difference between the two. But I suppose
he went back doing trials as well, didn't he? Miko started really from scratch, the management team. I think they invited lads in as well to try get themselves on the panel as well, as far as I remember. I suppose it is a long time ago. You can verify. Do you have a better memory?
Yeah, I think it probably did, but when we look back at both teams, 2002 and 2003, there's not a great deal of difference between the personnel that we had on both sides. And I suppose what my first memory of Miko was in Portarlington one very dark and dreary Tuesday night, and we thought Miko's here and there'd be plenty of ball work, and we didn't see a ball probably for 3 or 4 months. Do you know what I mean? I suppose
he ran as heavily, being honest with you, so he did. But like that, my first meeting of him, I met him in was it the Midlands Park now it's called. Declan introduced. He went around to every player and shook his hand and introduced himself, and he was after being at that Meath game as well, that we were well beaten in Moore Park, and he made reference to it to myself anyway. He came up to me, and I just remember him going, he says, you were middle of the field, and in his Kerry accent, obviously. I won't try to take it off, but he says, look, you'll be a big player for me. I remember him saying that to me, and that was it. And like Fergal said, we turned up on one wet October evening thinking, well, not really knowing what was going on, but eager to impress. But there was literally no ball seen for 3 months. He ran the shite out of us. I won't say he didn't weed out anyone, but like, geez, the training was tough. And so it was mentally, it was hard. 20 laps one way, or 10 laps starting with 7 or 8 laps one way, 7 or 8 laps the other way, and that went on. So it did.
I suppose it's not a myth, you know what I mean, when you hear people talking about Miko's training and the laps that he was renowned for doing. We definitely experienced that, and as Padraig said, the only difference in training was the direction of the laps. Do you know what I mean? And it was tough going, and it did probably mentally prepare us for what came further down that year. But I think at the first night he was there also, Pádraig, as well. After the first 20 laps, he got us into a group in the middle of the field, and you know, he had a bit of a chat with us, and he said to us that we had a lot of potential and that we were definitely going to realise our potential within the next few years. And he also on that night, I remember saying that, you know, there's no doubt that within a few years that Laois would definitely have a few more All-Stars.
I'll be honest with you, I think he said by the end of the year. I remember that it was cold, it was wet, and he said by the end of the year we'll have a couple of All-Stars. And Jesus, it turned out we ended up having 3 good ones, being honest, and Tom, yourself, and Joe. So it was, but no, he did make reference to that. I suppose that if you look at that, was only in our first couple of sessions. He was really drilling his mentality, his winning mentality into us without us even knowing. That's the confidence he was sort of throwing into us. Like as a manager, you feel when you look back at what he was doing, he was really geeing you up. Like we had, I suppose, the greatest manager that in that era over us. We were coming off the back of probably like nearly getting to the Leinster final in '99. I was only reading about that on Laois today. Actually, being honest with you, I remember we were hard done by not to go to the Leinster final. The county was in '99, and then we went through a couple of years of hard times, and coming on the back of that Meath defeat after 22 points, I think we were beaten by that evening, to be even making reference to that. And that was only a couple of months back, to making reference that you'll have a couple of All-Stars. Like it starts to seep into your mind. And I suppose every night you went to training, you wanted to try and impress him, whether it was running or whatever. We sort of forgot about each other, but you were trying to impress him to get yourself on that panel, I suppose, at the start.
Yeah, I think, Pádraig, it's as I think back on it now, you know, that training was all for a purpose, yeah. And you know, we probably wondered at the time, and people were saying, "What are you doing all these laps for? Isn't football all about playing football?" But actually, when it came to playing football, when the evenings were bright enough and the ground was hard enough, we played nothing other than football every night in training. And people are probably saying, why aren't you doing hard sprinting? Why aren't you doing a lot of running? But we had put in a lot of that hard effort early in the year, and you know, when the fine evenings came for Mico, it was all about the ball and playing games. And you know,
he wasn't big into the drill side of it as regards what goes on now heavily as regards keeping lads motivated and stuff like that. It was pure an hour and a half of non-stop football. I remember being in the middle of the field, obviously, whatever team he picked, he'd never call it an A versus B, but if I was on Garva, geez, it was an hour and a half of hardship. Do you know what I mean? We really, if you were looking at trying to play coming up against some of the best midfielders, I had it in training. I had to go up against Garva, and that's, for me, it was a battle every fucking evening going training. He was just non-stop, and obviously totally enjoyable because I was aggressive through trying to win that battle on whatever team you were on. But our first game, I remember Longford in the O'Byrne Cup. Our first game, geez, like we lost the game. We weren't great, and we were after training so hard for 3 months. And the television was there, and there's a big furore about it. And of course, geez, after getting better, I remember coming in, and I don't know who I was sitting beside. I just said to myself, and I said it out loud, going, geez, what is he after taking over? We're no better. But he came in fairly enthusiastic after losing, and we knuckled down for the next 3 weeks. And we were like, no better game to probably prepare for. I was just looking at who we played first. We had Meath in the first round of the league. And we always travelled well to Navan. No matter, it was like playing sometimes Armagh, we always travelled well up in Navan. And for the length of time I was in with Laois, being honest with you, I don't remember losing too many games up in Navan. So we actually got off to a good start in the league as well, if I remember. But that Longford game, fairly depressed going home that Sunday evening after getting a shake, after getting hit for Longford, you know.
I'll never forget that day either, Pádraig. I mean, it was the first time I think any of us ever experienced RTE cameras in the dressing room before a match started in the O'Byrne Cup in January. It was hard to believe, but that's the sort of media circus that Mico was able to bring with him. You know what I mean? And the level of interest that the media had in teams that Mico was training, you know, and that kind of probably fed into us as well. You know what I mean? And Mico was feeding us with, you know, with notions about ourselves, you know, making us feel as if we were better than maybe we actually were at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Always positive. It was always positive. Always positive. If you're having a bad day out where things weren't going well for you, I remember even after we won, going down the years after, things weren't going well, and he still fucking stood with me when I should have been probably sitting in the stand for 1 or 2 games to regain my own composure, my own head. But like he was, I always felt he was probably fairly loyal to some of the players that he could have substituted quicker or whatever. But in saying that, going up to Navan, and after we beat Meath, like we only a couple of months back we did get bet by 22 points, so they were really cocky enough they're going to beat us as well, and we clipped them up there. And I think we went on to Fermanagh. I think was next, wasn't it? We went on to Fermanagh.
Yeah, I mean, we were in Division 1B that year, and you know, we as you say, we played Meath in the first round, and we played Fermanagh at home actually, and beat them. But the next game I remember was against Mayo, away in the National League in Ballinrobe, and that was another, of course, wet and dreary day in Ballinrobe, but we managed to come out there victorious by a pint. So, you know, we were building a head of steam under Miko at this stage, do you know what I mean? And we were competing with the top teams, Pádraig, you know, and
if you were looking back and you were looking at a team to gain confidence, and I'm sure he started believing in us as well, probably more so after beating Meath, who were in the All-Ireland only in 2001, 2 years before that. And then you had Fermanagh. I don't remember too much of Fermanagh at the time, being honest with you, but they were second in the league as well that year. So they were just, again, looking back, because I don't really remember. But again, I remember that Mayo game, and the pitch was brutal. We ended up getting a score near the end just to win the game, and we came out there and we were bouncing. So we were, as regards a squad, to be going up and playing Mayo, and obviously Mayo would have been traditionally strong side, and just to get a win there was excellent. Yeah. And then we just moved on. So we did. I don't know who we played next, to be honest with you. Who was after that?
Yeah, we played Down at home, and
it was tough. They were always tough.
We drew that game actually with Down, and then we played Sligo at home and won that. And then the Cavan game away was a massive game, Pádraig, in the league. I don't remember. Yeah, 2-17 to 4-11. I had to look up the score, but I did remember that.
I don't remember the game at all.
But it was a draw match. But I suppose the final game in the National League group stage at that year was against Kildare at home. Do you know what I mean? And ironically, it wasn't the first and last time we played them that year. But you know, we beat them 1-14 to 1-9, and this was Miko's first big challenge with this team against a team that he had managed only very, very recently. You know, and
to be honest with you, Kildare had the kibosh over Laois for a long time coming up to that. We got no. I was involved. It was my third year involved, but geez, they were a team that we were looking forward to as players, because we were in good form, and justified as regards the crowd he brought. There was about 15,000, 16,000 in Moore Park that day, and we weren't qualified just then, I don't think, for the league. We were nearly there, and geez, it was a cracker of a game. So it was, and we ended up, obviously we won the game, but I think the supporters and probably ourselves were very much bouncing after that to be going on to a league semi-final. So we were. Yeah,
I think that probably as the story develops now, you know, I think back to what Tommy and Paddy were saying there just before us, talking about playing in Croke Park and not getting to play in Croke Park that often. But, you know, I suppose for us up to that point, you know, we got maybe an outing or two in Croke Park every year because of the way the Leinster Football Championship is played. But you know, our National League semi-final in 2003 was against Armagh in Croke Park, and that was the first of, I think, 6 outings we had in Croke Park in 2003. Yeah, and you know, it was unprecedented times for us. And you know what Tommy was talking about in terms of, you know, the going up in the bus and the Laois supporters, we experienced that right from that National Football League semi-final day in Croke Park, and it just built and built and built. You know,
and like as Paddy was making a reference to be sitting on a bus, and for me, it was only 22 years of age, and wasn't obviously that much involved in as regards being on the panel and that. But to be sitting on the bus to go up that first day, I was actually after getting Player of the Month for April. I remember before that league final, and I think it was Sean Kelly was president of GAA at the time, and he gave it to me, and he just says to me, "How do you think I'll do on Sunday?" I was cocky as you like. So we'll beat them. We're playing Armagh. We'll beat them. Now these are the All-Ireland champions, but I didn't give a shite, being honest with you, because. Again, they were a team, if you remember, we bet them with Colin Brown to go into the league final against Kerry the year previous. And that was my first crack at them as well. And they were a team I absolutely loved playing, whether it was going to Crossmaglen or playing them in Port Laois. And to this day, like, Laois always get their gander up. Even this year in the league, Laois played very, very well, I felt, in the league to beat Armagh. But we went along and we performed very, very well to go to the final against Tyrone. And I suppose that, to me, that final against Tyrone, they were awesome. Jeez, I felt they were one of the hardest teams I've played against out the field. They were just like rats. They were going everywhere. So they did, and they did a job on Kerry as well, as it turned out, in the All-Ireland final as well.
I think, interestingly enough, Pádraig, in the National Football League semi-final and final, we ended up playing the two teams that ended up in the All-Ireland final that year. And one were the previous year's winners, and Tyrone obviously went on to win the All Ireland in 2003. Do you know what I mean? So we were definitely, you know, competing with the big boys at that stage, and we knew that there was something in us. But I suppose the championship started then, not long after the league finished, Pádraig, and again it was another visit to Croke Park, which was kind of unprecedented for a first round, but it was a double header, and we played Wexford in Croke Park in the first round that day, and we had
start well in the first half.
No, but we put up 119 in that game against Wexford to their 10 points, and you know, it kind of got us back on the road after the defeat to Tyrone in the National Football League final, and you know, I think it was a stepping stone, obviously, to our Leinster victory that year. But you know, things did
even going back, coming up to the game, like after us getting to the league final, the pressure would have been on us as a panel. Now, unknowns to us is when if you were looking from the outside, like it was a formality, but I think we actually started very bad in the first half, and it was the second half we just kicked into gear and sort of got our rhythm and took off, thank God. So we did. And it brought us to the Offaly, and if you look at the Offaly Tyrone game, again we started fucking bad again because we would have been probably favourites going into it, and Offaly and Laois had good rivalry like Kildare as well. We were very lucky to get out of O'Moore Park.
Yeah, that was probably, like, we had a lot of memorable games in 2003, but that one was very, very memorable from the point of view that we were very, very close to being beaten that day. And you know, I remember Kieran McManus catching me out with a fairly decent goal, which ended up being goal of the year at the end of the season that day. But also, I suppose, was it Kevin Fitzpatrick that gave the ball to Mick Lawler, and probably a suspicious throw a ball instead of a hand pass.
When you look at it, I swear, I thought we were beaten, being honest with you, and only in fairness to Fitzy, he got it and he threw it, and Mick buried it. And I remember after the game, I was never as frustrated, as disappointed, but then a stroke of luck that we were still in the championship. So we were, and I think there was positional changes after that game too, because if you looked at Kevin, he was up at full forward. Kevin ended up being right half back. Tom ended up from cornerback going to centre back. So we had a totally different, I don't know if it was a week later or 2 weeks later. I think it was on Monday. We played them over there. And again, I think going over to Offaly, I always like going over there. It reminds me of the club pitch at home. It was nice and tight. And Carlow the same. Dr. Cullen, nice tight pitch and a cracking ground because the crowd's on top of you. And there was massive support for each going over. It was a wet out evening as well. And we ended up winning the game, but it was a game I felt we were going to win. We just needed to get out of Port Laois, get home, get training during the week. And I remember, as I said to you, thanking the chickens we were still there. So we were, because I felt I didn't play well myself that day, and I had loads of energy still ready to go. And if it would have been gone out with Leinster Championship, jeez, it would have been bulling. You know, so.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, Tullamore is normally a reasonably happy hunting ground for Laois teams in the past, and that was a June bank holiday weekend, Pádraig, if you remember it as well. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, we got out of there with the win and got our kind of season back on track. And, you know, from then on, we were looking at playing Dublin in the Leinster semi-final, and, you know, at that stage, Dublin obviously, you know, were only coming, and they weren't the powerhouse that they are now, but they were still one of the most formidable teams in the country, and definitely one of the most formidable teams in Leinster. And you know, we knew that if we were to, you know, get to a Leinster final, we were going to have to beat one of the best teams in Leinster. And I suppose for me that day, you know, from a personal point of view, the Dublin game was a massive game for me, and with some great memories. But you know, there's one standout memory I'll have to this day, and I didn't actually see it or know about it until afterwards. But you know, we went in at halftime. I think we were a point up at halftime, Pádraig, going in against Dublin after playing reasonably well, and Colin Parkinson was being interviewed on RT at halftime, and the usual typical Colin had to say to the reporter, we were 1 point up against a team like Dublin, a halftime in the Leinster semi-final, and what did Colin say to the reporter? I can't see Laois being beaten from this point. Do you know what I mean? And
just thank God as players that we didn't have to listen to that.
Yeah.
I remember when we came out to do our warm-up, I'd say there was about 40,000 there, but that was the biggest crowd that I've played against. I would have played against, and I remember running out, and we tried to talk to each other during the warm-up, kicking around or whatever, and you couldn't hear a thing. Literally, it was like a buzzing sign. It was like a cauldron that you were in, and that for me was a surreal experience. And then going into half time, and obviously there was a bit of a row as well. But again, like what you said, we come in after the bit of a row or whatever, and we were all sitting down, and Miko come in last, and he started roaring that we have these fuckers. He said, we have these fuckers. That's why he was roaring, and the teeth was nearly falling out with his mouth. He was sweating, so he was. But we had, or he felt, I suppose, as management, as Colin felt, he was injured at the time, looking at it, that we must have had. We had it in the legs, knowing your panel and knowing your team. The two boys had very much confidence in us probably to go and finish the job. And I suppose looking back on the game, I only barely remembered. Dublin did miss a lot of scores, and we had a good bit of luck during the game. But to win anything, we had. I always my own saying, even when I'm over any team or whatever, if you train hard enough, you get a stroke of luck. And we were getting that strokes of luck because we had busted arse training that since last October. So fitness levels were there. And then there was a massive camaraderie, I felt, in that group. And we spoke about it even on Monday, that you mightn't see lads for 2 or 3 years, or even could be 4 or 5 years, but you still look at them and you still have a fond memory of somewhere along that journey, 2003 journey, or whatever, you just start laughing, or just how you getting on. Wouldn't be a cross word, I think, between the whole panel. But then, as I said to you, we ended up winning the game. I got the score near the end, which was probably from a personal point of view, was great. Some people still make reference to it, so you're still thought of at certain stages from the two of us. So it was nice to get the win and get out of there, and I got my match same day. So I was delighted. I was.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the highlights of the year of many highlights. But I think, it's only when I was thinking back on it today, and thinking about the Leinster final, and obviously we ended up playing Kildare in that Leinster final, and again there was two sides of it. There's always a lot of rivalry between Laois and Kildare, and particularly where I live here in Courtwood, we're literally on the Kildare border, and I was one of those people that was on the wrong end of some bad Kildare trimmings in 97 and 98, yeah, and things never really went that well for me against Kildare, but I felt after the league game that we had something in us, and we also had that extra little bit of bite that Miko had managed them very, very recently, and he didn't want to be turned over by a team that he had managed either. So we were going into that game full of confidence, but we were also cautious about it as well. But also another thing that we had to overcome, and I think Tommy and Paddy mentioned there as well, gaps between games, sometimes it's hard to fill, but we had 5 weeks between the Leinster semi-final and the Leinster final, and I was trying to think back to today, why was that so long a period? But at the time, Ireland were hosting the Special Olympics, and Croke Park was hosting the opening ceremony as well, that I remember being at, and it elongated the time between the Leinster semi-final and the final, and it was 5 weeks, Pádraig, and it was 5 weeks of tough training, I remember, and we were I remember chomping at the bit to get back to Croke Park to play that Leinster final. It couldn't come around quick enough, but I suppose from the beginning of that day to the end, it's a bit of a whirlwind.
And again, if you look back, thinking again, if I was lucky enough to get to a final and you had a good semi-final, that break was actually ideal, being honest with you, because if you do come from, say, like what happened to us in 2000, we back in there, remember the semi-final, and we had a cracking game. We 2 weeks at the Leinster final against Dublin, and for the first half, we started poor. So if I'm thinking back now, I look at that 5-week break, we got to enjoy that victory against Dublin. Hadn't happened in donkey's years. We were in the Leinster final, hadn't been there in a long, long time. So that break of the get your head down, we knuckled. They ran us heavily again. We played loads of football, obviously, coming into that. The crowds coming to training, the big Ferrari coming up to the final. There was pressure on us, but we knew we had work done after getting over the semi-final too, if you understand me. So again, like what Joe said, I think it was actually good preparation for us looking back now. Maybe I didn't think back then because you wanted to get out and wanted to go again, but it could have freaking helped us as well. But another cracking game, being honest with you. And I will say, I think the positional changes of Kevin going halfback and Tom Kelly at 6 Tom definitely at 6 gave us a massive engine going forward. Anytime we broke play, or if the Higgins came out with the ball, or Fenno came out with the ball, or someone broke down, Tom just jetted from 6, which if you looked, he got 2 points in play, and 1 or 2 frees he was taken down as well. He had a cracking final, and he was probably he started off that attacking zone at 6 for us. So he did.
I think you mentioned Kevin there with regard to the final, and I suppose very unfortunately for Kevin, he ended up getting sent off that day. Just a mistimed tackle, just very unlucky. And I think the referee was probably harsh on Kevin, but he was also harsh then on the Kildare player that he sent off as well, just after that or before.
I was marking Alan Barry at the time, but he got 2 yellows. So he got a chance, being honest with you. Mick Wright got 2 yellows. They both got chances to stay on the field. And I'll be honest with you, Alan Barry's first yellow was striking me off the ball. No one really knows. He struck me a box off the ball and he was caught. And then obviously he hit Tom. But when he took down Tom, it was a yellow card too. So he deserved to go. Mick Wright was in similar. If you look at his 2 incidents, he deserved to go. For me, to this day, my heart goes out to Kevin because we would all been very close as a panel, being honest with you. And I love the half back line of Kevin, Tom, and Darren. Fucking 3 lads, 6 foot 2, 6 foot 3 that could play a ball, and they're big, massive men. And I just felt for him to get sent off, and he missed our Armagh match as well. I think that was a massive blow for us as well. He's just his physicality. Fitzy, even when we played in that Leinster final, we missed a goal near the end, and Fitzy had it. He would have practiced that non-stop, I knew. So I just felt so sorry for him. To this day, I feel sorry for him because we all would have been close, as I said to you. And to a certain extent, it takes the gloss off. Obviously, it was great to win, but you wanted to win with everyone. I'm sure it probably kills him to have to go. But I felt the referee just evened it up. So I did. It was under pressure that day. He felt he evened it up. If you look back, it was a mistimed tackle, but it's not a fucking red card. Even they couldn't believe it on the commentary. They went, geez, they're sending him off. It was harsh, so...
I think also, Parry, there was a couple of standout moments in that game as well. And, I suppose the goals that we got just after half time, you know what I mean, were probably as good as you'll ever see in Croke Park. And
Beano's brilliant.
His vision, Beano's vision and his ability on the ball. He's for me, he's probably one of the greatest players I've ever played with. And Beano scored 219 in that year's championship, Park. Yeah, he was, I think, the 7th top scorer in the whole of the country that year. But it wasn't only his ability to score, Park. It was his ability to see people around him and that little jink and that little offload. He just creates the space for other people to do the job. He was unselfish. But I suppose we let Kildare back into that game as well, Park, and they got the penalty, close 3/4 way through the game, which really brought them back into the game. I remember Ronan Sweeney taking the penalty. I kind of guessed the right way, kind of got my hand to it, but he hit it hard and high, and I didn't get enough on it to put it over the bar. But it was kind of hearts in our mouth stuff for the rest of the game. And I suppose, again, the changes that the management made in terms of, they brought in Barry Brennan, brought in Donald Miller. Both of them scored, as substitutes and scored valuable scores for the team. And I think what Miko and Declan and Gabriel created that year was they created a lot of competition, but they also created, a lot of camaraderie, as you said. And players were willing to die in the field when they were there, but they were also willing to come off when they had their job done and let somebody else go on and have their time on the field to help the team. So, I think, up to the final whistle that day, that game was never really won until the final whistle was blown. And I remember, I think Tyke Fennan had a shot across the face of the goals nearly with the last...
You were jumping in the air.
Nearly with the last kick of the game. But, when the final whistle went, I suppose... I fell to my knees and within seconds we were engulfed in the field, Park. And I think, for people around Laois, their abiding memory of winning the Leinster title will be that sea of Laois people on the field. They were going to have the presentation of the cup on the field that day for Park. Remember, they had to abandon the idea,
But like that, as I said to you, we got to remember we relegated Kildare as well. Now, if you look back to it, they didn't have Rainbow and they didn't have Dermot Early, like 2 of their main players, and they were young enough and fit enough, they were injured. So again, we did get a stroke of luck. And them coming back into the game, I felt Glenn Ryan changed the game for them. Glenn Ryan came in and he was just he was a pain in the hole. He just never shut up, but he really drove on the Kildare side. Then I always loved looking at him playing, being honest with you. He was very passionate. He was dirty. He had everything you'd want in say, your on your side, so he was. But they did drag themselves back into the game. But we stuck with it, even though they came back from nearly 7 points each time. We stayed with it, and I remember I grabbed Colin Byrne at the end, and they struck a free. Remember, hit off the post, and we went up the far and then scored, and then we scored again. He scored 2 in a row or whatever to win the game. But like you said, after the game, you're just engulfed. And Paddy made reference that you're talking about memories. Like, it's very hard coming from a small county. It's very hard to win anything. And I'm sure, like, when the hurlers did get their victory up there, I was thrilled for them because they got to experience some of what we had as well. So, and it brought back memories for every one of us as well, that we did get to experience it. The memories that the hurlers have, they'll bring them to the grave. So they'll always meet. Paddy spoke about the panels very close. I'm after making reference to yourself. We've spoken about it already. The panel would have been very, very, very close. But I suppose to win it, and then it was up near Ian when he lifted the cup and just looking down. That was it was massive. So that was to me, it was. Sure, that was the pinnacle, being honest with you. Whether whoever we played in the quarter final, I didn't give a shit. We were after winning the Leinster final. My grandfather was on it in 1946 or 57 years ago, and we won. So I was very happy.
Yeah, I suppose for any of us, Pádraig, and any young player that's out there at the moment, that's on a development squad or not on a development squad, because there's players that don't play on development squads that end up playing at intercounty level, as they progress. But I suppose we all have that dream of going up the steps of the Hogan stand to lift a trophy, and I suppose it is a dream that you have to work really, really, really hard to achieve. And you did mention that you need a bit of luck, and there's no doubt you do. But you make your own luck by the effort that you put in, yeah. And I think we got our just rewards that day. And I suppose after the game, the crowds as well, as you say, looking down on the field was memorable. But we went back to the Red Cow Mourns Hotel, and getting off the bus and being clapped into the hotel. It was like something that we'd never experienced before. And
you could box that feeling, like, as I said, like, we didn't experience it. Sure, we were after getting beaten, usually playing one championship game. You played Croke Park, you lose, you go home, and it wasn't good experience for anyone. And so there's a flip. You got to see what it was like to win something, being honest with you. You're hitting the nail in the head. If you could box them, that memory be brilliant. Even the drive down, we came through Monasterevan, and Big Jez said there was no horn left on that bus, and everyone roaring and shouting, and getting back into Moore Park, and the place thronged. And I remember that Monday. The Monday was cracking. I don't think anyone went to work on the Monday. The main street was full, and we all met in our Loughlin's and Declan's place there. And Jez, it was a cracking day, so it was. And I think we went back training on the Wednesday.
Yeah, typical Miko style, Pádraig. Yeah, I mean, there is one kind of maybe small little chapter left in this story, because obviously the year didn't finish at the Leinster final. But you're right, we did go back training on the Wednesday in Portarnton, if I remember. And we thought, great, we play a bit of ball, and he ran us back and forth across the field. But to make it worse, the stand in Portarnton that evening was full of people, yeah. And the more people that were there, the harder Miko ran us, yeah, back and forth across the field. It was just his way of stamping his authority again and bringing us back down to earth. And we played Armagh, the All-Ireland semi-final 2 weeks later, who were the reigning All-Ireland champions, yeah, at that time. And we played really, really well against Armagh that day, and I think it was it 15 points to 13 was the final score. And
we missed a lot of easy scores as well. So yeah, we missed a lot of scores. We
probably left things behind us a little bit there, but I suppose it was an experience for us the whole year. And maybe a lot of people say all of that came a year too soon for us, but I wouldn't agree with that. I think you have to take these opportunities and you take the victories and when they come, yeah. And if they come your way, you've earned them. Nobody is there to give you anything in this life. You have to earn it. And I think we did earn it, and we built on it after that. And maybe we didn't achieve as much as we should have achieved after that. But I think one thing that I'd always say to young lads in sport is that enjoy the good days, because you'll always have more bad days than good days, but it's probably the bad days that make the good days really, really good and terrible,
Yeah. It was. We've been down a bit of a run, obviously, with Miko, and even with Liam Kearns, we went to the Leinster final in 2007. So we had from 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, have been very, very competitive, and probably didn't get the rub of the green until probably just in 2012. Then against Dublin, we got back up to somewhat that level again, and until obviously John had good success there that a couple of years ago as well. So no, them memories last with us forever, being honest with you. And that was probably a massive year. Still, people talk about it, and it's nice, I suppose, 17 year, I might say later or whatever. But no, that was it.
All right, Mike. Well, listen, thanks, Pádraig, for taking part in that and reliving the memories. It kind of gives you that funny feeling in your stomach, you know what I mean, to think back on those days. And I wish that the players that are coming, that are there now, and I think the players that are coming in the future, I hope that they get to experience what we experienced as a team together. And if we do, we know that Laois is in the right place. But I think there's a lot of great work being done in Laois at the moment, both in hurling and football at underage level. And I think it won't be too long before those young players will experience what we did.
Please God. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. Thanks, Fergal.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, lads. Thanks very much. It was very, very enjoyable. Yeah, Miko, I suppose he was 84 there last week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, so he's still going. But I suppose my most enjoyable experience or most valuable experience being involved in the GAA down through the last, I suppose, whatever it's been, 20 odd or 25 years, whatever it is. But I got the opportunity to meet Miko originally over in Baltinglass. I was in college in IT Carlow, and one of the lads was a Baltinglass clubman. So he said, sure, come on over and we'll meet him. And I met Miko 3 or 4 times over there and tried to encourage him to come down to my own club to take a session with those lads. So eventually, anyway, as we moved into October in around 2010, I was in charge of the senior team at home, and Miko agreed to come down. So I met Miko in the stall, and I was able to bring Miko over home, I suppose, and he sat down at the table with the father drinking tea and so on. And that was, I think that is the highlight, I think, of my GAA career to date. I think that,
he would have always had for everyone, even anyone that came up to him, whether it be in training or not, whether he knew you or not, he'd pretend he knew you, and then he turned around, who's that? He turned around and asked me, who's that? But that's what he was. He was very approachable. He, from the smallest kid to the oldest adult, that's the persona he had. You couldn't speak more highly about him, whether you liked him or not. The way his manner around people, he was great. You know what I mean? He gave off a great aura around him, so he did.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, he had that X factor, isn't he?
He had
that X factor, So, guys, thanks very much. You mentioned there about the yellow card that Barry got for he giving you the lick, but you never mentioned about your yellow card. As far as I remember, the referee gave out 2 yellow cards at that time, didn't he? So
my memory, Fergal already. My memory doesn't be great.
You don't remember that one? No, that one, yeah. You remember the lick you got from Barry, all right? But that's thanks very much. So I think there's one question there, if maybe not 2 at this stage, that I might put to yourselves, please. And then Tommy and Paddy are still in the call. I might refer back to a hurling question. So to yourselves, lads, and again in relation to Miko, the modern sports science would probably criticise Miko's approach. Have you used much of his methods now when you're preparing teams? And if so, what would you have used?
I suppose for me, like the running side of it doesn't change. Miko ran us very heavily. I think anyone that's, I'm sure you'd ask Tommy and Paddy and Eddie's running them as well. Obviously, the strength and conditioning came more probably apparent especially with Tyrone and Armagh, where they were starting to dominate. The northern teams were starting to dominate. I think they were a little bit ahead of everyone else when it came to strength and conditioning. Now you can do your strength and conditioning, but at the end of the day, whether it's hurling or football, you have to be able to run as well. So like Miko's training mixed in with a bit of strength and conditioning. Obviously, that's what's still happening. We didn't do many weights, being honest with you, under him. We didn't do any at all. We did ran. So we did. So mentally, I feel when you're physically fit, you're very, very strong anyway, both mind and body as well. But obviously, added on, strength and conditioning has gone very, very big in sport, whether it's football, as a rules, whatever, but everything. So obviously, it's gone a mixture, but you can't substitute that hard running. It does mentally get you. That's my own opinion on it.
I think it's not only about the hard running, and the hard running serves its own purpose because it makes people mentally tough and mentally strong. Yeah, but I think what Miko had, that people maybe, unless you were in a team that he was managing, you wouldn't realize he had it, because tactically Miko wasn't there with tactics boards telling lads to run here, organising kickouts. It was pure football with Miko. He came from an era where he had really, really good players in Kerry, yeah, and he was very successful because they played a really dominant, hard-running style of football, yeah. But I think with teams that Miko managed up this side of the country, the likes of Kildare, the likes of Wicklow, like the likes of Laois, he had success with them all, and it's no coincidence that he had success with them all, yeah. And it wasn't because of his tactics, I'll tell you that, yeah, and I'll be honest there, but it was because of the belief that he instilled in players, yeah. He made players believe that they were better than the players they were playing against, yeah, and that they could achieve anything. And I think if you have someone of Miko Dwyer's caliber telling you that you can achieve. Yeah. Once you believe it, you're halfway there. Yeah. You have to work hard then to achieve it. But once you believe it, the head can overrule a lot of things. Yeah. But once you're mentally strong, mentally tough, and you know, you can believe that you can do it, well, then anything's possible. So I think that's probably, from my point of view, if I took anything from the way he managed, was to encourage players and make them believe in themselves, you know.
Yeah, thanks very much, lads. One more on the football there before we refer back to the hurling, please. So the Leinster was the holy grail for so long. Was it impossible to get properly mentally prepared for Armagh? Would you have done anything different between the Kildare and Armagh games?
I suppose for me, like, and I said, I made reference, there's no point looking back on what you could have done, because at the time we did what we were asked to do. You had only 2 weeks to prepare for that quarter final. So we trained on the Wednesday. We probably would have trained the Saturday, the Tuesday, Thursday was a rest. No, I think the match was a Saturday evening maybe. So Thursday would have been, we would have done late sessions. So you can't, like, you've got to realise you're coming up against the All-Ireland champions. They won the All-Ireland in 2002. So you came from Laois, who were after getting a hiding the year before, after winning the Leinster final. So looking back, probably from my own personal thing, looking back, if I could have not kicked out maybe near the end, I don't know. We missed a lot of scores as well on the day, but for that little week and a half or whatever, sure, you weren't going to get any fitter. You weren't going to do too much. You were preparing against the All-Ireland champions, who in turn went on to nearly beating Tyrone again, to nearly done the double Armagh did. So you were getting the best team in the country. So they were unbeaten. So no, I don't think we could have done much more for it, to be honest with you.
No, I think, you know, Parag has probably hit the nail on the head. We did what we were asked to do during that time, Mike, yeah. And, you know, we were coming up against a very formidable side in Armagh. Maybe it's like any game when you look back on it. Maybe there's things you could have done differently during the game on that day, yeah. And you know, lots of people, there's lots of great managers up in the stand, yeah, or in the pub afterwards that'll tell you what you should or shouldn't have done, and maybe sometimes they're right. Maybe sometimes they see things that you just don't see during the game, you know, as a management team. And after being involved with management teams now, I kind of tend to realize that you know, you can miss teams as a management team when you're on the line. Do you know what I mean? And on that day, maybe Hughie Emerson, who was, you know, maybe coming towards the end of his career, but he was big, he was strong, he was very influential in games from a strength point of view, and maybe we didn't introduce him into the game early enough into the full forward line to cause consternation like he did, because when he went in there, you know, Francie Bellew, Enda McNulty, the whole focus of the Armagh full backline was on Hughie Emerson, and it opened up space for other people. And you know, we were only beaten 15 points to 13 in that game, Mike. And you know, I know that, you know, Armagh had their chances as well in the first half, but we also had our chances in that game. And you know, it's just a pity that things didn't go our way, because you know, maybe that was the year for Laois to get to an All-Ireland final. But you know, that's anecdotal at this stage. But you know, I don't think that we could have done anything different in our preparation coming up to the game. No.
Perfect. Thanks very much, lads. So I might just go back to the point there, please, if Tommy or Paddy are still on the call. And once I pose this question, that seems to be the end of the questions, folks. So I'll just stay quiet for 10 or 15 seconds after Tommy or Paddy address this particular question. And if anybody just like to come in for the last 2 or 3 minutes and just share your memories, then please do so, and we'll finish up then at that stage. So Paddy and to Tommy there, please. So with the video analysis, what are the key indicators / trends, the positives that the hurling management were looking for after the Waterford / Galway games and the Monday night session? So I'll repeat that. With the video analysis, what were the key indicators / trends, are the positives that were that the hurling management were looking for after the Waterford / Galway games and the Monday night sessions? You might just open your microphone again, please, Tommy.
I suppose after every game, you're looking at the positive aspects and the negative aspects. It can't be all negative, because I don't think that will have the desired effect either. And I think it's important that you don't focus on too much either, because look, it's generally before a training session or after a training session when you're doing your bit of video work and you only have a certain amount of time when you have the lads focus. So we generally would have focused on maybe one positive and one negative after every match. But what you're looking at is puck outs is huge. It's similar to football. You could have between 30 and 40 puck outs per team in a game, like, so that's up to 80 restarts, and I suppose retaining possession of the ball is huge. So you'd be analysing opposition puck outs, you'd be analysing how we did on them, how we did in our own puck outs, what we need to improve on. It could be use of possession, decision making, tracking runners. The Waterford game was mentioned there last year. I think we conceded 4 goals against Waterford. Is that correct, Paddy? And
Yeah.
We actually just had a meeting. It was only a 15-minute meeting. That's all, with the backs for training one evening after the Waterford game, and just went through the goals and broke them down in terms of our position and where we should stand and what we should do in those situations. And again, look, even from the players' feedback, and we felt ourselves we got huge value from that. Now, again, that's very, very hard for a club to do. They mightn't have the resources of a video analysis and a meeting room that can use with a big screen before training sessions. But we felt, and we didn't have the most high tech system either. Like, actually, it's funny, we mentioned reference that practice game up in Abbottstown against Dublin, and we had our video analysis team, which was one guy and a small camera. I think Dublin had about 5 lads with iPads and fancy equipment, but we were kind of laughing about it going away that evening. But yeah, we found that was very good. Look, just again, one positive, one negative impact. You can't overload players, I think, before or after a training session, loses value. And again, it can't be all negative either. So we would have focused a lot on what we were doing right and how we were hurting teams. And I hope that answers the question, Mike.
Yeah, I think that's clear. Thank you very much, Tommy. Yeah, iPads won't win hurling matches or football matches. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So yeah, like I said, folks, I'm just going to stay quiet for the next 10 seconds. If anybody'd like to open up their microphone, just check to see if there's any more messages there. So yes, I'm going to stay quiet for 10 seconds. If somebody'd like to open up their microphone and come in and share their memories briefly, and then I'll finish up if that's the point we're at. Okay, so first of all, folks, I'd like to just thank all the people that joined in the call this evening. I think the call, and I think the memories that we heard and the stories that were shared, I think deserve a bigger audience. Now, this is recorded and it will be made available with all the rest of the webinars that we held over the last few months. So thank you for tuning in. It definitely deserved a bigger audience, but it will be made available. In particular, I'd like to thank Paddy and I'd like to thank Tommy from the hurling side of things and sharing their memories. In turn, I'd like to thank Padraig and I'd like to thank Fergal for giving us their memories and their thoughts on what was 2003. So from my point of view, I'm usually under pressure, even if it's not me doing the presentations, that the lads perform well and get the right information across. So it was great just to be able to sit there and enjoy what was being said tonight and just and to soak some of that in as well, which is important for myself, I suppose, coming in as an outsider, no doubt. But yeah, it was really, really good. So I'd like to thank the 4 lads. And as we move into next week, look, it's back to more serious business again when we look at back to play activities and I suppose the health and safety side of things. So tonight was brilliant. I'd like to thank the 4 lads again, and we'll speak to everyone again next week. So cheers, folks. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.